Just turning the cameras on a half an hour before we go live. This is Aaron Boster from the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis. Super excited for this February live stream. I love to turn my camera on about a half an hour before the party starts. Carrie Perry in the house. Heidi Ho from small town Indiana. Hello, Carrie. I hope that you and yours are doing well. You're the first to join us today. What's your weather like out in Indy? Hey, Eddie. Nice to see you. Charmed, I am sure. Howdy do. Sissy's in the house. Authorities in the house. Dina is here. This is fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Great to see everybody today. Missy's in the house. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Carolyn Doss is in the house. Hello, everybody. Welcome. As you jump online, please share where you're jumping in from. Pink Meadows is in the house. Always an early bird. Jenny is here. Hello from Chicago. So as you jump online, tell me where you're jumping on from. Get comfy and cozy. Grab your water for the MS Water Challenge. We're going to be going live at the top of the hour at 11 a.m. sharp. I love to turn my camera on a little early just to get a chance to say hello to everyone, let you get comfortable and talk amongst yourselves. Charmed, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for visiting. Harmonica Pants, that's a fun name. Sissy's in the house. Welcome, welcome. Behind the scenes, I'm going to set a few things up in the background here. I'm going to grab my water, and I'll be back in a few. We've got some fantastic moderators that have already jumped online. Angela's in the house. Ben is in the house. Bluthton is in the house. Thank you to the moderators for helping make this such a successful experience for everyone. Can you guess? I threw a little quick question up there. Can you guys guess which birthday I'll be celebrating? Go ahead and throw your answer in the chat. I'll be back in a few short minutes. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm back, guys. There's 91 of you that have jumped online. That is amazing. Hello, howdy, hi. Aaron Boster here. Super excited for you to join me. This is our February live stream. I'm celebrating a big birthday this week, and so I named it the birthday live stream. I am super excited to have you all here with me today. As you jump online, share where you're jumping on from. It's amazing to go back through the chat after the live stream's over and see where this growing global online village has amassed. I threw a question in the chat. Feel free to guess my age. Which birthday am I celebrating? We'll see how many people can guess the right answer. Welcome, Gus, representing Athens, Greece. Gus, when we go live and I turn the camera on, I want to show you my coffee cup. I brought it home from Greece. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We'll be going live at the top of the hour. Good morning, Vivian. Good morning, Sabrina. Good morning, Ree. Hello, Rodriguez. Kathy's in the house. Great to see you, Claudia. Gus is in the house. Welcome, everybody. As you jump online, make sure you share where you're jumping on from. New Mexico is represented. Nikki is here. Hello, Nikki. Claudia 10, I love it. Thank you. Poker Vibe is in the house. I'm super excited to connect with you. I so look forward to these monthly Ask Me Anything live streams. I've got a couple topics that I'm excited to talk to you about today. Hazel is in the house. St. Andrews, Scotland. What's going on? Tammy's in the house representing Georgia. Denmark is represented. I spent a week in Copenhagen years back. Gosh, that's an amazing city. I can't believe it. There's 103 of you that have already jumped online. We've got 20 minutes until we go live. Amy Conway is in the house. As you jump online, share where you're jumping on from. And of course, if you feel brave, take a gander at which birthday I'll be celebrating this week. Reen, I am so glad that you're here. Thank you for making the live stream. Say hello to your neighbor. Make sure that you grab some water for the MS Water Challenge. You know how we do it. Egypt is in the house. That's phenomenal. I'm not sure we ever had a live stream participant from Egypt in the past. Ben, one of our amazing moderators, is leading the way, reminding you to hit that like button. You can also spam that heart button. Both those things let the YouTube algorithm know that you dig these live streams. It also helps push it out so more families impacted by MS can benefit. As many of you know, I started this channel way back in 2015 with the goal of educating my patients and their families between clinic visits. This channel has grown and grown thanks to you and your support, with the goal of energizing, empowering, and educating families impacted by MS. I am super excited to be here with you. Tammy just celebrated a birthday. Happy 21st birthday, Tammy. Yeah, spam that heart button, guys. Show love. We've got South Africa in the house. Doug Tag is in the house. Coffee in hand, of course, representing OHIO. Doug's guessing 57 years old. There's 112 of you that have jumped online early. Sterling, yes, I'm celebrating a birthday later this week. So I thought I would label this live stream the birthday live stream. And I'm really excited to celebrate with you. Ree is taking a guess at 54. Wisconsin representing. What's going on, guys? KD, happy 40th. Circumstances. Taking a gander and a guess. Welcome, everybody. What is your weather like? What's your weather like, guys? Ohio had quite a cold front last week. Got down to -2 in the morning. I don't remember the last time I saw negative numbers like that. It's actually really nice outside. All the snow is essentially melted. It's sweater weather. No hat or jacket needed today. Share what your weather's like in the chat. Carolyn Doss says it is cold outside. Kathy's got some rain. Extremely hot in South Africa. I dig that. Windy in South Dakota. Gonna get up to 70, Ben. Ben, remind us where you're calling in from. Cold and sunny in Germany. SK, which part of Germany do you hail from? Michigan's got 13 degrees. Tina, what's going on? Cloudy and chilly in Wisconsin. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is Aaron Boster, the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis. We're going to be going live, turning on the camera in 15 short minutes. That's right. Thank you, Ben. Polly's in the house, representing Southern Missouri. The Pyrenees. That's a beautiful part of town. Joe Siders is in the house. Joe, it's great to see you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Joe's an amazing moderator. Sunny in Egypt. The UK is in the house. What's going on, Jane? Thanks for being here. New Mexico representing. If you are impacted by MS and you're comfortable sharing, how many years have you had multiple sclerosis since symptom onset? Throw that answer in the chat. Cassie's in the house. Cassie, it was great to have you in the suite. Thank you so much for coming to visit us. Rebecca's got 20 years. Ben diagnosed back in 17. Our friend from Egypt just a year ago, 10 years for Gus. 2010 was Michael's onset of symptoms. Claudia back in 95. Carrie Perry, 3.5 years. Reberks, 21 years. I am excited to answer your questions. Hold those questions for when we start the actual live stream in 14 short minutes. Amy, a little over a year. Audrey, 10 years. 4 years since diagnosis. There's oftentimes a significant discrepancy between symptom onset and the actual time of diagnosis, sometimes for years. When we're trying to track multiple sclerosis, I always feel it's most useful to go from symptom onset because diagnosis can happen at lots of different times. Both dates are obviously very important. Lydia's got 27 years. Thank you, Julian. Care to guess which birthday I'll be celebrating, guys? 1 year yesterday, MS Babe, 77. Desiree is in the house. Everyone say hello to Desiree, one of our amazing moderators and a fantastic friend of the channel. Desiree, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here. Angela's in the house, diagnosed or symptom onset in 98. Angela's a great moderator. We're so glad to have you here. I hope you and yours are doing well. Sabrina's guessing 50. Claudia is welcoming everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Polly diagnosed back in 22. Symptoms going way back to 96. Yvonne, thank you for being here. Sterling, that's right, symptom onset, meaning if you have multiple sclerosis, when did you first start to manifest clinical symptoms of the condition? That's how I like to track the disease onset. Rebecca says 40. God bless you, Rebecca. Lynn, 25 years since diagnosis. Cassie's taking a gander at the Big 5-0. I'll give you the answer as soon as we go live in 13 short minutes. Gus taking a guess at 64. Chain Fate, diagnosis in 23. 31 degrees for Joe Sider. Claudia had symptom onset in her teens. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, thank you. This is a big birthday week for me, and I am so excited to kick it off with you guys today. Rain's guessing 50. KC represented. Phil is here. Thank you for being here. Andrea was diagnosed in 2013. Claudia is without a home right now. Claudia, God bless you and best of luck to you. It is not an easy thing to be without a home, and it's got to be super hard to be chronically ill. Andrea, thank you for being here. Kettle Haven Ranch is in the house. What's going on, Steve? Thank you for being here. Lynn started back in 25 years ago with symptom onset. Joe diagnosed in 2015. Kathy recalls 13 years back her symptom onset. Welcome everybody, welcome, welcome. Aaron Boster here, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to go live once a month to connect with this growing global online village. The YouTube channel literally just crested 81,000 subscribers. Good morning, Kathy. What's going on? Hey, Kevin, thank you for being here. Symptoms back in the 90s. Thanks for the well wishes, Andrea. I never ever thought we'd hit 81,000 subscribers, and now I'm sort of wondering whether we could hit that 100,000 mark. That would be amazing. Switzerland is in the house. Gus just celebrated a birthday. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, thank you. We've got 9 minutes until we go live. There's 138 of you that have jumped online. That may be a record for kicking things off before we even get started. Wow, that's amazing. Claudia's in the house. Julie, thank you for the happy birthday wishes. Kimberly, thank you for the happy birthday wishes. As you jump online, share where you're jumping on from. There's a couple questions floating around the chat. What's the weather like chez toi? Where are we dealing with cold temperatures? Do we have hot temperatures? It's actually really nice here in Ohio. It's warmed up. The snow's almost all melted. Lynn, my birthday's on the 6th as well. That's awesome. We share the same birthday. Thank you, Par. I really appreciate it. The Netherlands is in the house. That's phenomenal. Amsterdam's probably one of my most favorite cities to visit in Europe. Chain Fate, thank you so much. We're going to be turning the camera on in 8 short minutes. Make sure that you have your water ready for the MS Water Challenge. I am fired up. Ben, my birthday is actually on the 6th as well. Couple February 6th birthdays here. Sterling, that's a good guess. I'm going to share the answer to how old I will become once we go live. Bama is in the house. What's going on? Ann is here. Great to see you. Matt G is in the house. What's going on, Matt? A lot of great questions starting to pop up. Claudia has questions about fluoride and MS. Kathy's in the house. The UK is represented today. That's fantastic. Welcome, KDD. Thank you for being here. Yeah, February 6th, not a bad day. I'm going to get a little bit older. Happy to talk about baloconcentric sclerosis once we turn the cameras on. A lot of great questions brewing in the chat. Kevin Horn is in the house. Kevin, give Rufus a big hug for me and a kiss on the snout. What's your weather like in Alabama, Andrea? Sabrina, how long ago was that? Out of curiosity. Guys, we're going to go live in 6 short minutes. There's 162 of you that have jumped online. Unbelievable. That is fantastic. I'm overjoyed. Thank you all for being here. This is Aaron Boster, broadcasting live from Columbus, Ohio, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis, where we care for families impacted by MS from around the globe. Aquarius, that's right, Sarah. Right on, right on. Serbia is in the house. I spent about 5 days in Serbia years back. What an amazing culture and amazing people. And I ate really, really well when I was there. Lynn is a young gun. Thank you for the well wishes. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go live in 5 short minutes. As you jump online, feel free to hit the like button. You got to jump out of the chat, hit the button, and jump right back in. It's one of the great ways of letting the YouTube algorithm that you love this content and that you support the channel, and it helps push it out so more families impacted by MS can benefit. That's really the goal, is to energize, empower, and educate people impacted by multiple sclerosis. It's kind of what I'm all about. Spam that heart button. That's another great way of showing the YouTube algorithm that you love what we're doing. I'm going to step away from the microphone for a hot second to take a quick bio break, and then we're going to get rocking and rolling at the top of the hour. When there's only a few minutes left, you know what we do. We flame up the chat. So get that flame key ready. I'll be back in just 4 short minutes. Don't run away. Back in the hot seat, 3 minutes until we go live. No better time than now to start to flame up the chat. What Makes Sense has got the right idea, and Sterling is showing much love. Thank you all for being here. There's 172 of you that have jumped online as we get ready to rock and roll at the top of the hour. This is Aaron Boster, broadcasting live from Columbus, Ohio, where the weather's not half bad. I'm celebrating a big birthday this week. Feel free to guess my upcoming age in the chat. And of course, as you jump online, share where you're jumping on from. Good morning, Jerry Burns. It's great to see you, my friend. I hope you and yours are doing well. Thank you for the well wishes, Joyce. Thank you for being here today. We're going to go live in 2 short minutes. We got some guesses for my age popping up in the chat. I'll tell you the answer as soon as we go live. LaSonia Walker is in the house. We've got 2 minutes until we go live. Feel free to spam that chat heart button. Feel free to throw flames in the chat. That's how we do it. Barb, thank you. Merci bien. great drug Ocrevus. Adriana's guessing 61 years. Regina, symptom onset a year ago at age 58, excuse me. We got some guesses for age here. Thank you, Jane. Independence, Kentucky in the house. We've got 1 minute until we go live. Flame up the chat. Let's get the whole chat flamed up. Audrey's leading the way. Mama Bear is leading the way. You know how we do's it. We have literally less than 60 seconds before we go live. Flame up the chat, everyone. Show love. Let's get rocking and rolling. The countdown is on. We're about to turn the camera on. I am super pumped to be with you today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get that whole chat flamed up. Bruce, that's right. Ben, that's right. Moments until we get started. Sarah Allison is in the house. Let's go, guys. Let's go. I'm staring at the clock, watching it tick down. I can't wait until the top of the hour. It's about to be time to go live. I can't wait. Crash Test is in the house. UK representing with flames. Michael's got flames in the house. Vivian Cook has got flames. Hey! Howdy, good morning, everyone. Aaron Boster here, coming at you live from Columbus, Ohio, representing the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis, where we care for families impacted by MS from around the globe. I am super excited to be here with you today. I can't believe there's 183 of you that have already jumped online. Thank you to each and every one of you. If you look in the chat, you see those blue names. Those are our amazing moderators helping lead the way. If you see a moderator, tell them thank you. It's a volunteered labor of love to help keep the chat clean, to help throw questions forward, to help me see them. I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you very, very much. I named this chat the birthday chat because I am celebrating a big birthday this week, February 6th. I have a big birthday, and if you haven't yet guessed at my age, throw your guess in the chat. Go ahead and let's put some guesses in the chat. How old is Dr. B going to be? Brought this cup home from Greece. Vivian's guessing 50. MS is guessing 50. 45, Rob. 21, yeah, I wish that was true. I see a 41, I see a 50, I see a 62, I see a 51, I see a 44. Woo, that's awesome. Drum roll, please. February 6th, I'm turning the big 5-0. 50 years of age. So a lot of you are dead on accurate. I'm going to be 50. I'm pretty excited about it. In fact, I have my team members from the Boster Center for MS stopping over this evening for a bit of a party. It's a great opportunity to get together outside of work. The Boster Center has got about 19 team members in total, and I'm super excited that we're all going to get together and have a good time. Got some food coming, and it should be a really, really fun moment together. This is another fun moment. I am so excited to be here with you today. Thank you all very, very much for joining me on this live stream. I started this YouTube channel way back in 2015. My goal was to create content to help up my patient's game and help you learn in between clinic visits. This channel has grown and grown. We've been growing ever since we started. Been putting out a video every Monday or every other Monday, depending on how many I can make. And I've been doing these live streams once a month, the last Saturday of every month since I opened the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis 5 years ago. We just crested 81,600 subscribers, and I want to thank each and every one of you. I never thought that was possible. Absolutely amazing. Our friend from Egypt says spirit maybe 30. Thank you, my friend. That's fantastic. And I don't feel like I'm turning 50. I feel like I'm about 19 years old. My back doesn't feel 19, but I certainly feel that way inside. Today we're going to be doing an Ask Me Anything live stream. So as you guys get comfy and cozy, do me a favor and throw your questions in the chat. Please keep in mind, I can't diagnose or I can't treat you on the interwebs. This is not medical advice. This is medical education with the goal of empowering, energizing, and educating people impacted by MS This is a great first question by Barb. So Barb's going to kick us off today, and her question is, how prevalent is PIRA? So let's start off by saying, what is PIRA? So PIRA is an acronym that stands for Progression Independent from Relapse Activity. People impacted by MS can develop disability or worsening, meaning their neurological exam gets worse, one of two ways. One way that people impacted by MS can get worse is if they have an attack and they don't fully recover. And we nerdy neurologists have a term for that. We call that RAW, relapse-associated worsening. And so if you have, let's say, God forbid, an optic neuritis and you can't see out of your eye, and then the vision comes back only halfway, you have accrued a degree of disability. We call that RAW, relapse-associated worsening. And there's a second way that people impacted by MS can develop disability or worsening, and that's completely separate from an attack. PIRA, progression independent from relapse activity, is how we describe that. And PIRA occurs completely devoid of an attack. Someone just develops dysfunction. They have more trouble doing something, and we can't track it back to an attack. Now, when we study PIRA, it's a lot more common than we realize. There's different studies that show different numbers, but I would say that about 25 to 30% of patients studied can accrue progression independent from relapse activity during clinical investigations that are typically 2 to 3 years long. So it's not rare. The prevalence of PIRA, I think, is underappreciated. And where I really think PIRA is an important concept, I guess there's two reasons why I think it's an important concept. First of all, it's honest. All too often, patients will share with me that they literally feel gaslit by their neurologist. And unfortunately, let me take a quick sip. Unfortunately, there's a common occurrence where, let's say a patient comes in to see the neurologist and the neurologist says, hey, you're doing great. They inform the patient. They say, look, your exam is stable, yay, and you haven't had an attack, and that's great, and your MRI is clean, so you're doing super. And the patient says, yeah, but I can't walk as well. And the neurologist will say something to the effect of, no, you're doing great. Your MRI is stable. And the patient will repeat themselves, yeah, but I'm having more trouble getting the job done. I can't think as clearly. I'm slower. And there's this disconnect, and I hate that. And sometimes patients feel like they're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They feel maybe like they misunderstood or they're crazy inside, and they're not. You're a you expert. You know more about your body than any other human being or any test that exists. And oftentimes, patients, in the quiet of their own hearts, they're aware that something's different and they're not doing as well. And PIRA is the way that we can properly describe that phenomenon, where, yes, the MRI is stable, which is always awesome. It's really awesome to have a stable MRI. It's always good to have no new spots because those spots represent brain damage. So we don't want any more brain damage. And it's good not to have an attack. When you have an attack, you've got about a 40% chance of never walking the earth the same. About 42% of people don't fully recover. And so not having an attack is wonderful, but that doesn't mean that you're not getting worse. And some people do, and that's this concept of PIRA. So one of the two reasons that I really like PIRA is it's honest. It gives a voice to the reality of what some people impacted by MS experience. It allows them to verbalize that, hey, I hear you that I'm not having an attack, and that's good. And I hear you that there's no new spots on my MRI, which is good. But in addition to that, I'm having more trouble doing stuff, and it's impacting the quality of my life, and it's honest. The second reason that I like the concept of PIRA is if we don't characterize and describe something, we can't build a treatment algorithm or a research protocol. We can't figure out how to fight back. And so by bringing the concept of PIRA to the forefront of MS, by recognizing that it's not just relapses and then progression, the way that we used to talk about it back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, recognizing that in reality, people as early as clinically isolated syndrome can suffer from progression independent from attacks, it allows us to study it. It allows us to quantify it, which we've started to do in clinical trials, and it allows us to come up with therapies to beat it. MS therapeutics have come a long way. When I got involved in this game quite some time ago, there were 3 drugs available to treat MS, not very many. We now have 28 different formulations of FDA-approved therapies to beat MS, and that's a godsend. That's amazing. And some of our most recently developed therapies are really high-powered things. They do a great job of quelling inflammation. They do a great job of shutting down attacks. They do a great job of stopping new brain damage on the MRI. But they're not adequate in and of themselves. We still need to do better. And the area that I see the biggest need is progression independent from relapse activity. Now, there is some research suggesting that some of the newer drugs can slow down PIRA compared to the older drugs. There's been some Pepsi Coke challenges that have looked at this. So it's not as if we can't impact it at all, but it's a really, really hard thing to do, and we're not very good at it yet. Barb, that was an excellent question to kick us off. Thank you for asking it. Let's go to the chat and find another question. So Joyce is asking a neuroanatomical question. Neuroanatomy is a love of mine, which is good because it gets beaten in your head during neurology training. And Joyce G says, "Hi, Doc." Well, hello, Joyce. Do you have any idea whether lesions that are mainly located at the top of the spinal cord can cause trigeminal or glossopharyngeal neuralgia? So let's dissect what Joyce is asking. First of all, what's neuralgia mean? So the first part of neuralgia, the neuro part, references nerves. Algia means ouchie yaya. So neuralgia is painful nerve. So that's what that means, painful nerve. And she talks about 2 different painful nerves. The trigeminal nerve, which is a nerve that runs the sensation in your face. So there's 3 parts to the trigeminal nerve. There's one up here, there's one right here, and there's one down here. And the trigeminal nerve, the nucleus, the motor of that nerve is up inside the brainstem in a structure called the pons. And so spinal cord damage can't cause trigeminal neuralgia. That's not possible. Now, unfortunately, people impacted by MS are 14 times as likely to experience trigeminal neuralgia compared to the general population. That is a very, very high prevalence. And the reason is because people impacted by MS are people, and people can have compression of those nerves where they come out of the skull. That's the normal way that people get trigeminal neuralgia. But in addition, that motor nucleus in the pons can take a hit from demyelination. And so many of my patients experience trigeminal neuralgia, which is described as one of the worst pains that a human being could possibly experience. Sometimes people refer to it as the suicide disease. And I've had friends and patients that have shared with me that the pain is so bad they wish they weren't alive. Fortunately, oftentimes we can treat trigeminal neuralgia. There's a host of ways to do it, including lotions and potions. We use a lot of medicines to treat trigeminal neuralgia. There's also some surgical procedures. Now, the second neuralgia that Joyce asks about is glossopharyngeal neuralgia. And the glossopharyngeal neuralgia has to do with the tongue. And so the nerve that runs the tongue and the nucleus where it comes from is in the base of the brain in a structure called the medulla, or the medulla oblongata. So some of you may remember that movie Waterboy with Adam Sandler. And there's a famous scene where the teacher says something's wrong with his medulla oblongata. And I remember when I was a student, I said, "Ooh, I know where that is." And that's not in the spinal cord. It's above the spinal cord. So it would be very unusual, if not impossible, that spinal cord lesions could cause damage to those 2 structures. But unfortunately, people impacted by MS can have spinal cord lesions and brainstem lesions. That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I appreciate it. Let's jump back in the chat and see if there's other questions. Robert's in the house. Robert, representing Syracuse, New York, a longtime member of the channel. Robert, I always look forward to your comments on videos. Thank you very much for being here. So let's see here. So Ben is sharing a question from Gus. So Ben's one of our amazing moderators, and Gus is a longtime participant in these live streams. And the question, there was a webinar by someone named Sherry Binns, who stated that Mavenclad should not be used in people in their 40s or after having average of 15 years on DMT. That's complete bullshit. That's not true at all. Now, I don't know who Sherry Binns is. I'm not saying that Sherry Binns is bullshit, but I'm saying that statement is false. In fact, there is great evidence looking at the utilization of Mavenclad in people under 50 and people over 50. And its impact on the immune response is identical. So its ability to suppress B cells and reboot them, its abilities to affect lymphocytes and reboot them is the same if you're under 50 or over 50. In fact, I would submit to you that one of my favorite places to use Mavenclad is in 60-somethings. I do that a lot in my clinic. I use Mavenclad as a de-escalation. For example, if I have someone on a high-powered B-cell depleting agent, which is a highly effective way of treating MS, but comes with risks of infection, I will sometimes de-escalate to use Mavenclad with great success. So I completely and utterly disagree with that statement. I think it's false. Thank you for asking the question, Gus, and thanks for throwing that question forward, Ben, to make it easier for me to find. All right, let's take a look here. Now, Betsy asks a question near and dear to my heart, talking about exercise. And if you want to live your best life despite having MS, you need to exercise as part of your lifestyle. There's a lot of YouTube videos on my channel talking about exercise and MS. Actually, I oftentimes will prep YouTube videos and then I'll set them up to be scheduled, and I've got a really exciting video coming out in a couple months, which is sort of a exercise tour de force on how to exercise with MS. Also, earlier last week, I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing a good friend of the channel, Dr. Gretchen Howley. Dr. Gretchen Howley has a doctorate in physical therapy. She's a neurophysical therapist on the East Coast. She specializes in multiple sclerosis, and if you're not familiar with her work, she's a rock star. She has a really comprehensive program called the Missing Link, MSING Link. So you can check her out on missinglink.com. I interviewed her. We did a fantastic interview. I had a lot of fun, and in my free time, I've been editing that video, so that'll come out on the channel soon. In other words, exercise is super McDuper important. And Betsy writes, I'm a 70-year-old woman. How high a pulse should I aim for on the treadmill? Or what should I aim for? Balance problems hinder walking without poles or holding on? So that is a really juicy question. I love that question. And before I answer it, we're going to hit that MS water challenge. I'm thirsty, and when I drink, you drink. You know how we do it. So let me find the proper... Wah! Whew, that's good. MS Water Challenge. I recently got a SodaStream. This is not sponsored. I have no sponsors. I just really like the SodaStream. I drink a lot of carbonated water, and now I can make it whenever I want. Put a little lime in there, and I feel like I'm having an adult beverage almost. And so this is a super question. Let's kind of break it down. Excuse me. As you listen, if you like what I'm talking about, hit that heart button. And let the YouTube algorithm that you like this content. Now, when you're thinking about exercise for MS, there's really 4 areas of focus. One is cardiovascular endurance, one is core strengthening, one is limb flexibility, and one is balance. Now, walking on a treadmill hits a lot of those. You're picking your legs up, you're flexing your abs and your hip flexors. You're working on cardiovascular endurance. That's that whole comment about the treadmill and the pulse. Balance can be accomplished, but here we learn that Betsy has some balance problems, and so she holds on. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, in my conversation that I recently had with Gretchen Howley, Dr. Howley, she said that using a mobility aid when exercising is actually super smart, because the goal is to do more repetitions and to use proper form and technique. And so we wouldn't want to limit our exercise opportunities because risk of balance. So if you can hold on using poles, or if you can hold on the sides of the treadmill, that's brilliant. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to exercise more effectively. It's going to allow you to exercise longer. The other thing I want to point out is that walking on a treadmill, or walking, is a really, really excellent exercise for MS. For people that are ambulatory that can walk, it's arguably one of the very best exercises. And the reason is there's direct carryover to life. One of the things that people who ambulate want to do is they want to walk safely, and they want to walk for distance. They want to walk whenever they're able to. And biking does not train walking. Swimming does not train walking. Pilates does not train walking. Walking trains walking. And so I love the fact that Betsy's using walking as her tool. Now, the question of pulse, let's talk about that. The real answer, Betsy, is that I don't care. Not that I don't care, but I don't care. My goal is not that you hit a certain pulse rate, okay? What I would rather ask you to do is to assess your success of treadmill walking by how you do afterwards. And I'm going to give you two metrics to think about. One metric is how long are you tuckered out after you exercise? So Dr. Howley suggests that it's okay to be fatigued out for 2 hours after an exercise session. So if you do your groove walking on the treadmill and you get off the treadmill and for about 2 hours you don't got a lot in you and then you recover, that was not overdoing it. Now, if you walk on the treadmill and then you're trashed the rest of the day, if you walk on the treadmill and then you have trouble climbing up the steps, that's too much. The second metric that I would recommend that we use is your recovery the following day. So I have some patients on the best of days, they could walk on the treadmill for hours. They could turn the resistance up or they could climb a mountain. And then the next day they're in bed. And so that's obviously not what we want to be doing. One of the key elements, Betsy, when trying to exercise with MS is not to overdo it. So we're no longer in the glory days of high school where we go big or we go home. And we really want to integrate exercise into your lifestyle. And so I'm not as worried about getting your pulse up to a certain amount. What I would ask you to do is, can you get on the treadmill? Can you hold on for support, which I think is brilliant? And can you do a regimen, get off the treadmill, and within 2 hours recover? Can you do your regimen on the treadmill, get off, and have a normal day the next day? Those are the metrics that I'm really, really looking for. And that is such an awesome question. Thank you for asking it. And I'm very impressed by your efforts at exercise. Now, this next question comes to us from Vivian Cook, who says, can you tell me about pseudo-bulbar? How do patients know? I don't want to lose the question. Hold on, guys. Some of you know that I am dyslexic, and trying to chase questions is a real challenge for me. And so I'm kind of scrolling back to try to find that question. All I can see here is what I put up on the screen, and I'm sorry that I'm clipping some of it, but what I read is, can you talk about pseudo-bulbar? And maybe she's writing, how does someone know if they have it? So let's talk about what the hey is pseudo-bulbar. Well, first of all, I think what you're talking about is pseudo-bulbar affect, okay? So pseudo-bulbar affect is a very embarrassing and very frustrating symptom that some people with MS experience. And it's a phenomenon where there's a disconnect between emotion and affect. All right, so let's define those. Emotion is how you feel inside. So if you're feeling happy, that's an emotion. Or if you're feeling sad, that's an emotion. Affect is the outward expression of that emotion. So most of the time, the vast majority of humans, emotion and affect are linked. So when you feel happy, you look happy, right? And that outward affect matches your emotion. If you're feeling sad inside, then you may have a sad face. You may cry, all right? And you look sad. So here, the emotion and the affect are linked. That's called congruent. Now, when there is damage to the frontal lobes, the front of the brain, you can have a disconnect where your affect and your emotion are disconnected. They're no longer congruent. And this can happen with a traumatic brain injury. It can happen with a stroke. It can happen with multiple sclerosis. And I have many patients that suffer from pseudo-bulbar affect. And the way that it typically presents is, I'll present 3 different ways that I typically see it. One is inappropriate laughing. So the comment, laugh at a funeral, this actually happens, where in a social environment where it's completely not appropriate to laugh, the patient does not feel happy. and they cannot control themselves from laughing. And as you can imagine, that can be super embarrassing and uncomfortable if you're in a business meeting and you start cracking up laughing, or God, you're at a funeral grieving the loss of a friend or a family member and you start laughing. And if you guys have seen, there's a great modern movie called The Joker. And this is part of like the Batman mythology. And it was a relatively recent movie. And in the movie The Joker, the character who becomes the Joker has pseudo-bulbar affect. And so if you've seen that movie, he'll start laughing uncontrollably. And he's not happy, he just can't stop it. And so that's a good example of pathologic laughter. Now, this can also manifest as pathologic crying. And I think I see this more often, where someone does not feel sad inside. They do not have an emotion of being sad, and yet they're bawling. They're crying uncontrollably. They're sobbing, and everyone around them thinks that they're really, really sad. And people try to comfort them, and they say, "No, I'm not sad," but they look sad, and that's called pathologic crying. The other thing that I see, which is related, is an inappropriate expression of emotion, where someone is told a joke and it's funny and they kind of giggle, but then they can't stop and it just builds. So maybe they did have a little bit of a happy feeling, but their outward emotion goes above and beyond. Like someone tells you a knock-knock joke and it's a little funny and you chuckle and then you start laughing hysterically. Way inappropriate. Or similarly, you hear something that's a little bit sad, just a little bit sad, and then you start bawling uncontrollably. And so that's pseudo-bulbar affect. Now, there are ways to treat pseudo-bulbar affect. So we don't have to just accept that. And I don't want you to accept that because that is just horrible and it's embarrassing, and sometimes it makes people not want to go in public. And I don't want you to be stuck at home because of that. And so there's a couple ways to treat that. Back in the ancient days of yesteryear when I was in training, we would use tricyclic antidepressants, so like imipramine. These are old school antidepressant medicines, and they can be effective at treating pseudo-bulbar affect. In the modern era, sometimes we can treat pseudo-bulbar affect using the medicines that we currently use to treat depression, like SSRIs. But there's actually a drug which is FDA approved for pseudo-bulbar affect called Nuedexta. So Nuedexta is a twice-a-day medicine. It's very well tolerated by my patients, and it works really, really well to treat pseudo-bulbar affect. So the punchline to all this is if you have emotional dysregulation, if you have a disconnect between your emotion and your affect, if you have pathologic crying or pathologic laughter or inappropriate emotion control, talk to your neurologist. Explain that you're concerned about this and ask to be treated. And so that's something that we can treat. Little sip of coffee here. I really like coffee. Got to walk more. Yeah, you do. Walking is super important. All right, let's take a look here. I'm going to look for some other questions. So here's a question about nutrition. Some allopathic doctors, so I'm an MD, so I'm an allopath, and I had very, very little nutritional education in my training, which is not okay. That's bad. I am really passionate about beating up on MS, and that involves eating smart. And so I've done a lot of postgraduate education on nutrition to up my game, and so that I can help my patients live their best life despite having MS. And one of the 5 ways that I do that is through nutrition. And whereas most of the time my biggest efforts are placed in helping people avoid ultra-processed foods, fast foods, fried foods, sugar-laden foods, diet foods. These are things I don't want you to be eating. There are some supplements that I do think have value, and omega-3 fatty acids are one of them. And so omega-3 fatty acids are found in like flax seeds or like flaxseed oil, and they're oftentimes found in fatty fishes. And so I recommend adding flaxseed into your diet. Flax seeds taste pretty good, and you can just put it on top of your yogurt. You can mix it in something you're eating. I like to put it on cottage cheese. And fatty fish are delicious. So we're talking about delicious things like salmon, delicious things like tuna, other fatty fishes. And that's a natural way of getting omega-3 fatty acids. Now, you can also get omega-3 fatty acid supplements. And so some people, because they can't get enough of those things in their diet or they just don't like to eat them, they can add in omega-3 fatty acids. Now, I don't know the best ratio, and so I'm not going to make something up and tell you something that I don't know. So I can't speak to the best ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. But I will share with you that I think of all the nutritional supplements out there that we hear a lot about, second probably to vitamin D, I think omega-3 fatty acids have some of the very best data. So thank you for asking that question. All right, let me look in the chat and find a different question. I'm going to change up the scene. So let's jump in to the Northern Lights scene. So this is a fun scene. I think it's fun. Let me know what you think in the comment section there. And I'm going to turn the music up a little bit. I hope it's not too loud. If it is, you'll let me know. So this is a great question asked by Sarah Allison, a smart young lady, who writes, how long does it take for a flare white spot to become a black hole? If you've had a lesion for 3 years, going on the 4th, and it's a black hole, did it take 1 year or 4? All right, so this is an MRI question. So when we get an MRI in the setting of multiple sclerosis, we look at several different kind of spots. And we look at white spots, we look at dark spots, and we look at enhancing spots. So the white spots, which are called T2 hyperintensities, that's the nerd term, or flare hyperintensities, they're white spots, all right? Those represent an area of inflammation. So it's a focal area of inflammation. And what's happening is that the naughty aberrant immune system, the immune cells that are misbehaving, enter into the brain, and they see part of your brain as a foreign invader, and they attack it with inflammation. And that breaks down the cells, and it brings in a bunch of water, and the water looks bright on the MRI. And so you see a bright spot. Now that bright spot, that T2 hyperintensity or that flare hyperintensity, doesn't tell you what happened, and it doesn't tell you when it happened, it tells you where it happened. So lots of things can cause a bright spot. You could see a bright spot because of head trauma, stroke, infection, tumor, or MS. And we use the size, the shape, the location to help us delineate that, hey, this looks like multiple sclerosis. And other parts of the MRI can give us more information about the age and of the spot. So the second thing that we look at are the dark spots. And the nerd term are T1 hypointensities. Hyper means up. Sorry, my hand's over here. Hyper means up and hypo means down. So a T1 hypointensity is a dark spot. And colloquially, we call those black holes because they look like black holes. And when you see a T1 hypointensity, it could be one of two things. If it's brand new, so you're just seeing it for the first time on a scan, and it's associated with enhancement, which I'll get to next, that could be just a reflection of excessive water. And sometimes on a follow-up scan, those go away. So if you see a T1 hypointensity and it has an associated enhancement on other sequences, then you're thinking, okay, that might be new and it might be a water signal. And then if you get another MRI, and typically we talk about looking at it 9 months later. So you get an MRI, like say the following year, and the T1 hypointensity is not there, then that was a water signal. Now, if you have a dark spot, a black hole, and then at the next MRI, There's no more enhancement, but there's still a black hole. We call that a chronic black hole. And what that represents is tissue loss. So permanent loss of brain tissue. The way that I think about it is imagine a war, like a battle between two armies where they're blowing up bombs and fighting. And when the dust settles, there's a crater where the city used to be. So because of the bombs, there's a divot where the earth used to be. That's what happens with severe inflammation in MS. And the darker the black hole, the more axonal loss there is. And so a chronic black hole, one that's been around for at least 9 months based on the definitions, represents axonal loss or brain volume loss. And the ratio that I was taught by my mentor from white spots to dark spots should be like 10 to 1 at most. So for every 10 white spots, it's okay to have 1 black spot. That's what I was taught. And when you see an excessive number of black holes, like if you have 1 black hole for every 2 white spots, that'd be 50%. That's bad. That's a bad prognostic factor. Now, the third spot that we look at is after the administration of the contrast dye, the injection. We typically use something called gadolinium. And the gadolinium is a chelating agent that goes in the blood vessels, and it lights up the blood vessels so that you can see inside the blood vessel. And when we give gadolinium, if there's a new lesion, a new, brand new area of damage, it will have a leaky blood-brain barrier. And so that dye will leak out of the brain tissue it'll leak out of the blood vessel, and it'll cause a circle of enhancement, lights up like a Christmas tree light bulb. And lesions only enhance for about 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at the farthest reach. So when you get an MRI and you see a new enhancing lesion, that's new now at the time we're talking. And so that tells you that it's a very, very new lesion. So when you're looking at an MRI and you have the white spots and the dark spots and the enhancing spots, all 3 of them are teaching you things about that lesion. Now, when you go in the scanner and you hear all those different kinds of banging, so you'll be in the scanner and it'll go bing, 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 bing. And then later it'll go bang, 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 bang. And it makes different sounds. Those different sounds are the different sequences. Some of those are doing the T2, the bright spots. Some of them are collecting the T1, the dark spots. And so there are different kinds of pictures based on how the MRI is being used. So that was a really great question, Sarah. Thank you for asking it. So Crash Test UK writes, my latest National Health Service neurologist has canceled all my medication and says I don't prescribe anything for PPMS and it's not that bad. That's horrible. Sorry. The UK, like many places in the world, has a socialized healthcare system. And the drugs for PPMS aren't always available. And I hate that for you. I'm sorry. PPMS is horrible. It's a slow, insidious decline in function. And in fact, people with PPMS tend to accrue disability faster than people with relapsing MS. And there's one drug that's been FDA approved here in the United States to treat PPMS, and that's ocrelizumab, one of the B-cell depleters, which is an IV taken twice a year. And there's other B-cell depleters that should work to treat PPMS. They just haven't been studied properly. So any of the B-cell depleters should work, like rituximab, Briumvi, Kesimpta. I would even submit to you that Mavenclad should work to treat PPMS. Now, I say should. None of them have been proven. None of them are approved. I'm just saying that scientifically that would make a lot of sense. I am very aggressive about treating PPMS. And we, of course, offer our patients at the Boster Center for MS to be on a B-cell depleter to slow down PPMS. There's a really cool study that I had the privilege of participating in called the Oratorio Trial. And the Oratorio Trial was an investigation looking at people with primary progressive MS where they got either ocrelizumab or they got placebo. And we were able to slow down PPMS by 24%, which I was very proud of. And we were able to decrease new MRI brain volume loss by 20%, which is actually a really, really big number. And so I think that's really great evidence that it's a good idea to treat. Also at the Boster Center for MS, we're involved in several investigations studying new drugs for PPMS. And one of the drugs I'm most hopeful for is a drug called tolobrutinib. We're participating in a trial called the Perseus trial, kind of a cool name. And the Perseus trial is looking at giving people with PPMS tolobrutinib. And so we have several patients in that trial. We don't have a readout yet. Those of you that follow the channel know that tolobrutinib was unsuccessful. It did not work to treat relapsing MS, not adequately. But it did work to slow down secondary progressive MS. It actually slowed down SPMS by 29%, which is freaking awesome. And I'm very, very hopeful that it's going to work to slow down PPMS. I disagree with your NHS neurologist that says PPMS is not that bad. It's not a condition, PPMS, where people have attacks, and so that's something. But there's a slow, insidious decline in function, and that's something that I personally think needs to be treated. Thank you for that question, and I'm sorry to hear that. I'm going to switch up the scene. I call this the Zen scene, and I like the birds in the background. Let's take another question. So Rebecca, well, that's a discussion, sorry. That's not a question. So Salmon asks, and I mispronounced your name, it was not intentional. Saman asks, what symptoms do medullary lesions cause? So that's another neuroanatomy question, so that's really cool. Thank you for asking that question. So the brain is a bunch of different structures, and we typically talk about the top of the brain. We call that the supratentorium. Those are the lobes, the hemispheres. And then we talk about the infratentorium, the base of the brain, or the brain stem. And the brain stem is kind of like four structures. There's the cerebellum, which is the balance center in the back of the head. The balance center is what we inhibit when we drink bourbon. We stumble about because that's controlling coordination, the cerebellum. And then the rest of the brain stem is the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla. And so those are like, if you think about like an ice cream cone with three ice creams, so midbrain, and then below that's the pons, and below that's the medulla. And those brainstem structures have the motor pathways to run your arms and legs going down from your brain. And they have the sensory pathways, so all the sensation from your skin going up the spinal cord, going up to the top of the head. And so that includes the medulla. So there are motor pathways and sensory pathways going through the medulla. And so when someone has a medullary lesion, depending on where it is, it could affect sensation or it could affect strength. There's also some of the cranial nerve nuclei that run your face. So you have all these nerves that run your face. They make your eyeballs move around and your mouth move and your sensation of the face and stuff. And some of the lower cranial nerves are run by the medulla. And so specifically the nerves that raise the back of your palate. So at home, say this with me. Ka, ka, ka. So you do it. Ka, ka, ka. When you say the ka sound, you're raising the back of your soft palate up. Ka, ka. And that's controlled by some of the cranial nerves. So cranial nerve 9 and 10. And the cranial nerves 9 and 10 are located in the medulla. And so if you have damage to the medulla, you might have difficulty with swallowing, and you might have difficulty with dysarthria, mispronouncing things. And when I'm in clinic and I'm testing someone's neuro exam, I'll have them say these funny sounds. Pa, 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 ta, 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 ka, ka, ka. And the ka sound, I'm testing the 9th and 10th cranial nerve. Now, another cranial nerve nucleus, which is in the medulla, is for the tongue. And the tongue has its motor nuclei in the medulla. And so some medullary lesions can cause problems with the tongue. And again, when I'm testing the neurological examination and I have someone say ta, so say that with me. Ta, ta, ta. You do it. Ta, ta, ta. what you're doing is, if this is my tongue and this is my teeth, you're slamming your tongue against your teeth. Ta, ta, ta. And the tongue does that. And so if you have a medullary lesion affecting tongue function, you won't be able to make that sound. And you can have difficulty controlling your tongue. So in summary, the medulla can cause problems with motor and sensory. It can also cause problems with some of the lower cranial nerves, like swallowing and moving your tongue, things like that. There's also some really important centers in the medulla for your heart and lungs as well. So that was a really great question. Thank you for asking it. All right, let's go down to some other questions here. Crash Test UK is saying ta ta ta. I love that. Thank you. So Mike is celebrating a birthday. So everybody say happy birthday to Mike. Mike, I will not sing because I can't. So February 1st is Mike's birthday. That's awesome, Mike. I'm celebrating a birthday. I'm turning 50 on February 6th. So later this week. So happy birthday to us, partner. All right, let's look for some other questions. A lot of birthday wishes. Thank you all very, very much. You know, there's 265 of you that have jumped online. That's amazing. Thank you all very, very much. It is such an awesome experience for me to be able to connect with you like this. I love making YouTube videos to educate you, to empower you, to up your game, to energize you. But really, when I'm making a YouTube video, I'm literally just talking into a camera. And so I really don't get a chance to interact with you. And this is so meaningful for me that I get to interact with you like this. So I want to thank you all for that. Let's switch up the wall scene. This is one of my favorite scenes. Let's see here. So Josh D says, can Tecfidera affect procreation for men? No. All right, let's see what other kind of questions we've got going on here. So there's a lot of great basic neurology questions today. Thank you, guys. So Neeraj, and again, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Neeraj says, sir, what's the difference between an MS lesion and B12 deficiency? So vitamin B12 is a really important vitamin. And if you have, and we get B12 from animal products. So if you have a strict vegan diet and never ever cheat for years, you can actually become B12 deficient, which is very bad for you. And I think that it's a really good idea, at least to take a multivitamin that has B12 in it. Low levels of B12 can cause fatigue. And so some people will find that if they take a B12 supplement, it helps with energy. But if you have a profound B12 deficiency for a long period of time, you can have two bad things happen to you neurologically. One is it can cause a dementia, so not thinking clearly. And the second is it can cause loss of sensation in the feet and legs and even up into the hands. This is something that you can see on the MRI, and it looks very different than MS. So MS lesions obviously can also affect the spinal cord, and they can also cause sensory loss. But the MS lesion is typically short, and it's typically like an oval, and it'll be in the back of the spinal cord, and it looks very different from B12 deficiency. With B12 deficiency, which I've seen unfortunately, the back of the spinal cord has this long area where it's pale, and it's not a discrete lesion, and it's not an oval. And so whereas someone who has loss of sensation could have one of those two conditions, it's pretty easy to sort out what one looks like from the other on the MRI. That was a great question. Cassie, thank you for the well wishes. I really appreciate that. All right, let's take a look. Look for some other questions here. You guys are throwing hearts in the chat. Thank you for that. If you like this content, definitely give the live stream a thumbs up. That helps the YouTube algorithm know that you like the content. Spam that heart button. That's another great way of letting the YouTube algorithm that you like this content. You know, when you participated in the channel, it helps me a lot. It helps the channel grow. When you comment to a video or when you leave a chat, the YouTube algorithm picks up that, and it helps push the content out so more families impacted by MS can benefit. So Andrea says, are you taking new patients? I'm willing to move. Well, God bless you. That's really, really kind of you. So yes, the Boster Center sees new patients 5 days a week. I would submit that we probably see about 1 new consult a day on average. So I see about 5, maybe 6 new consults each week. And we see people from all over the globe. You don't have to move. If you want to be a patient at the Boster Center for MS, we do need to see you in the office twice a year. And so I have people that fly in from all kinds of places, from Alaska, from Texas, from Florida. Some people come from other places outside the United States. But they have to be in the office at least twice a year so that we can properly examine them. We can put them through what I call the MS Olympics. And we can take care of them properly. Now, I am very fortunate that I have a medical license in multiple different states in the United States, maybe like 15 or 16 different states. It's on our website. And if you are in a location like, say, Texas, where I hold a license, or Kentucky, where I hold a license, or Tennessee, where I hold a license, then in addition to seeing you twice a year, we can do televisits, which I really, really find to be very valuable. So you don't have to move, but you do have to come in and see us. So we couldn't have an MS discussion if we didn't talk about ganja, if we didn't talk about cannabis. And so Marquita asks, how do you feel about marijuana? And I prefer the term cannabis to marijuana. Marijuana historically has a negative connotation. And so I prefer to use the term cannabis. But cannabis, marijuana, ganja, weed, we're talking about the same stuff. And I am a medical marijuana recommender in the state of Ohio, have been for going on 5 years now. And I'll tell you very briefly sort of my journey in recommending cannabis for patients impacted by MS. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I was a just say no kid. You know, drugs are bad, don't do drugs, and just say no to drugs. And we thought that, cannabis was a bad thing. And when states around the United States started to legalize medical cannabis, and there started to be a lot of discussion about it in patient forums and so on and so forth, I went to look in the medical literature. And I was really, really sad that there's not a lot of data about the use of cannabis in medicine. And there's still not a lot of data for cannabis use in medicine. It's growing, but when it first started, to become available, recommended for medical uses in various states, the data was really scant. And I'm kind of a nerd, and so I didn't want to be involved. And when Ohio first made medical marijuana available, including for MS, I again looked at the data, and I was really, really bummed that there just was like crappy data. There just wasn't a lot of proof, scientific proof, that cannabis could be helpful. And so I didn't want to be involved in doing it. But then something really interesting happened. I started to have many, many different patients reach out to me privately in the context of clinic visits, and they would confide in me that they found benefit to using cannabis. And I had a bunch of women who were over 65 years old, who were not big partiers or drinkers or something like that, who would confide in me that their grandchild had given them a doobie, and if they used the doobie before bed, that their symptoms were better. They had less spasticity. They had less neuropathic pain. They slept better. Their anxiety was better. And these older gals that I was taking care of didn't know each other. They weren't in like the same knitting circle, and they all got together and said, hey, let's all tell Boster the same lie. They were just sharing that they didn't need my Lyrica. They didn't need my baclofen, that they were getting more restorative sleep. And I finally heard this so often that I had to reconsider my assumptions about medical cannabis. And when I opened up the Boster Center for MS, I decided to jump in. I went and got the training that you need, which frankly is not very involved. And I became approved as a medical marijuana recommender in the state of Ohio. And so since then now, I routinely recommend cannabis, meaning that people can get a medical recommendation to use cannabinoid products for MS. And I have a bunch of videos on this channel where I talk about medical cannabis and what it does do and what it doesn't do and the side effects and the risks and potential benefits. So if you're interested in learning about the medical uses of cannabis, definitely check out those videos. Now, in a quick nutshell, cannabis does not slow multiple sclerosis, right? It doesn't do that. It does treat a lot of different symptoms, which many people impacted by MS have. And there's a lot of things it doesn't do. So it doesn't help with bladder. It does not help with cognition. It does not help with depression. It does not help with balance. Those are things it doesn't do. What does it do? For a lot of my patients, it helps with pain. It's actually like a remarkable medicine for neuropathic pain for a lot of people. For a lot of my patients, it helps with spasticity, spasms, cramps, Charlie horses, stiff legs, a lot. And in fact, the very best evidence for medical cannabis that exists is for MS spasticity. It also helps with insomnia. And a lot of people impacted by MS have a lot of insomnia. And there's all these prescription medicines, which I don't really like very much, like where Bugs Bunny like smacks you on the head with a hammer and knocks you out. And a lot of my patients find that using like a cannabis gummy before bed is a really great way of getting restorative sleep. It also helps with anxiety. And people impacted by MS are twice as likely to experience anxiety compared to the general population. And it also helps in one other area, which I've found fascinating, and that's with irritable situations. And so I have a dear patient of mine who I consider to be a friend. And he was sharing with me that one of the reasons that he liked to use cannabis medically was because it helped with irritable situations. And I said, I don't understand what you mean. And so he said, well, let me give you an example. He is a cyclist. All right. Now he's legally blind, so he can't cycle out on the street, but he uses a Peloton bike a lot, like hours. He's a very, very hardcore cyclist. And he shared that when he would cycle for more than like, say, 30, 40 minutes, his leg would start to burn. So he would have this really bad neuropathic pain when his body got heated up. And it would make him want to stop cycling. So he shared that if he used cannabis before he would cycle, that it made it better. And I said, oh, it treats the pain. And he said, no, it does not treat the pain. He said, it still burns. I just don't care, which is interesting. So when he uses medical cannabis, it's not that it helps that neuropathic pain. It makes it so it doesn't bother him. And so he can use medical cannabis, and then he can ride his butt off and cycle on this Peloton. And his leg will start burning, and it doesn't hurt. And then it doesn't bother him, and he can keep on keeping on. All right. Let me look for another question in the chat. So Mary Beth says, I don't know anything about Vyvanse. It's pretty new, I think. So I don't think Vyvanse is new. Vyvanse is a prescription stimulant, and it's an amphetamine. So it's in the family of Adderall and Ritalin. Even So It As Well is a wonderful human being. She has a fantastic YouTube channel. And so if you haven't checked her out, you should totally subscribe to her channel. It's a really great one. And she's a moderator on this channel, and it's great to see you, madam. And she writes, I just don't care. I love that. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, too. All right. We are just about at the top of the hour. And so let me take another question here. So Ben says, Ben is putting forth a question from Rebecca, and Ben's one of our moderators. Thank you, Ben. So Rebecca says, had my last Ocrevus infusion July 24th. Which second line treatment would be best to let my immunoglobulin levels recover, Aubagio or Mavenclad? So that's a really nice question. And both of them could allow them to recover, but I believe that Aubagio is going to do less to suppress the B cells. Whereas Mavenclad, we don't see a drop in immunoglobulin normally. Mechanistically, it could, at least a little bit more than Aubagio. So I think if I had to pick one of the two specifically for that question, I would pick Aubagio. Although you could probably get away with doing either. So there's 264 of you that have jumped online. That may be a record for us. I think maybe once we got around 300, but that's really up there. And I have had a great time talking with you guys and answering your questions. This is our February live stream. I guess it's really technically like the end of January live stream. I called it the birthday live stream because this week on February 6th, I'm celebrating my 50th birthday, which is insane. I feel like I'm 19 inside, although my back doesn't feel 19. And I am honored and delighted that I got to spend some time with you today. Thank you to each and every one of you that have jumped online. I want to thank you for subscribing to this channel. It means a lot to me. Thank you for watching my weekly videos and hitting that thumbs up button. Thanks for leaving comments and interacting and caring. And thanks for supporting one another. Whereas I started the channel as an educational tool, I never realized that it would create a community. And that's what we are, is a global village. And that means a lot to me. So I'm going to log off right now. I've got a party tonight. We're having members of the Boster Center for MS and their families come over to celebrate me getting old. And so I've got to do a lot of cleaning and getting ready for that. I want to thank each and every one of you for jumping online today. Thank you for participating in this. And I will continue to do these monthly live streams as long as you guys like them. If you haven't signed up for the Boster Corner, that's a free monthly newsletter where we share the dates of when I go live. And so you can look through the chat and find that, or you can look on any of my YouTube videos in the description. I have a link to the Boster Corner where you can find out where that is, and that way you don't miss any of the live streams. And I'll keep pumping out Monday morning videos. These days I do one every other Monday, and I'll keep doing these monthly live streams. So until then, this is Aaron Boster saying thank you for learning about MS with me. Be safe, and as always, take care.